In the third video of this series on constitutional concepts, we're looking at June 2012 test, and we're going to start with question number 4. So it says, base your answers to questions 4 and 5 on the speaker's statements below and on your knowledge of social studies. So we have to read the question first. How was the concern of speaker A resolved? Okay, so we have to look at what speaker A is saying and how did we fix that? A, as it stands now, the Constitution does not protect civil liberties. All right, so we go back down here. Adoption of the Elastic Clause, establishment of the House of Representatives, creation of the federal court system, adding of the Bill of Rights. So go ahead and pause, get rid of 2, choose your answer, and come back. All right, welcome back. Maybe you got rid of 1 and 3 and you chose 4. As it stands now, the Constitution does not protect civil liberties, and that was the argument made by the Anti-Federalists, and we know that the Anti-Federalists finally won their battle because the Federalists agreed to support the Bill of Rights if the Anti-Federalists would ratify the Constitution. So that is why the answer is 4. All right, so now 5 says, which 2 speakers support the ratification of the Constitution? So now we need to find 2 speakers that would support ratifying the Constitution. A, as it stands now, the Constitution does not protect civil liberties. The system of checks and balances will control any abuse of power by a branch of government. The demands of the majority will overwhelm the minority. The amendment process will allow the Constitution to be changed when the need arises. All right, so why don't you go ahead and pause, choose your answer, and come back. All right, welcome back. All right, so we're looking for 2. As it stands now, the Constitution does not protect civil liberties. So that is the Anti-Federalists, and they were not ready to ratify the Constitution as it stood. So you can get rid of anything that has A in it. So that gets rid of 1 and 2. The system of checks and balances will control any abuse of power by a branch of government. Well, they're saying, look, we have safeguards in place, and so this will be taken care of. So B seems like a good answer, so we can keep both 3 and 4. Now we have to look at, is it C or D? The demands of the majority will overwhelm the minority. That doesn't sound like somebody very confident in the document, so I think we can get rid of C. So the amendment process will allow the Constitution to be changed when the need arises. So if you think about the tone of both of those and the optimism in both of them, those are going to be your answers. So B and D. All right, so number 6, a strict interpretation versus a loose interpretation of the Constitution was most evident in the debate over the creation of the Bank of the United States in 1791, decision to declare war on Great Britain in 1812, annexation of Florida in 1821, issuance of the Monroe Doctrine in 1823. All right, so we're looking at a strict interpretation versus a loose interpretation of the Constitution was most evident in the debate over. All right, so you're going to pause, get rid of 2, choose your answer, and come back. All right, so this is a tricky question. Maybe you got rid of 2 and 3, and the right answer would be creation of the Bank of the United States in 1791, because we didn't have a plan for that. We didn't have anything in the Constitution that said that we could create the Bank of the United States, but Alexander Hamilton was adamant about the fact that we needed to create a Bank of the United States because we had to, if we were going to get the states in the right mind frame for a government that was headed by a national government, we needed to have a national bank that would assume the war debts from the American Revolutionary War. But it didn't say that in the Constitution, so we had to kind of go through the Elastic Clause and the look at the language and say, well, this is talking about this because we have the ability to stretch the Constitution. All right, so number 7. Which headline illustrates the use of the unwritten Constitution? So that means that it's something that we do, but it's not written down. All right, Washington establishes a cabinet. House votes to impeach Andrew Johnson. Senate rejects the Treaty of Versailles. President nominates John Roberts for Supreme Court. All right, so you're going to pause, get rid of 2, choose your answer, and come back. All right, welcome back. So maybe you got rid of 2 and 3. 2, 3, and 4 are actually in the Constitution. The House votes to impeach Andrew Johnson. That is going to be in Article 1. Senate rejects the Treaty of Versailles. That's a power that they have in Article 1. And then the president nominates John Roberts for Supreme Court. That's right in Article 2 because that's one of the presidential jobs. And so the only thing that's not in there is Washington establishes a cabinet because the founding fathers didn't necessarily know how complex our government was going to get. And so President Washington wanted to bring in a group of advisors to help him do the job, but it wasn't in the Constitution, so he sets that precedent. All right, number 8. Judicial review is most accurately described as the power of the President to override a decision of the Supreme Court, state courts to overturn decisions of the Supreme Court, Senate to approve all presidential appointments to federal courts, Supreme Court to determine the constitutionality of laws. So go ahead and pause, get rid of 2, choose your answer and come back. All right, so judicial review. Hopefully you got rid of 2 and 3 or something like that, and you chose 4 because that is the definition, determine the constitutionality of laws of judicial review. The president to override a decision of the Supreme Court, he cannot do that. State courts to overturn decisions of the Supreme Court, they cannot do that. The only way that you can overturn a Supreme Court decision is with another Supreme Court decision. So, like, for an example, Brown overturns Plessy, or through a constitutional amendment. And then 3, Senate to approve all presidential appointments to federal courts. The president nominates and the Senate confirms that, and that's right in the Constitution. So judicial review, remember, we have to have the court system in there, and that is the Supreme Court to determine the constitutionality of laws. All right, nice job.